The sound that cut through the night in the icy mountains was not the roar of a predator in search of game. It was the desperate scratching of a snow leopard knocking against the door of an isolated cabin. The storm outside was fierce, but what was about to happen inside the cabin would defy any known wild instinct. Liam, a man accustomed to the solitude of the mountains, found himself faced with a situation impossible to predict. He opened the door and found the impossible, a snow leopard, her strength depleted by the fight against the winter, bringing her frozen cub into his home, with the only hope that human warmth would save it. A story of survival, trust, and the unexpected connection between man and the wildest of mountain creatures. This story makes us question, how far can nature go when life is at stake? Liam never expected his life would change because of a snow leopard. He had spent years as a ranger in the mountains, accustomed to hearing the sounds of nature, even the strangest ones. But nothing prepared him for the sound that made him freeze in the middle of a stormy night. The scratching on the cabin door was different. The snow leopard was not hunting. She was asking for help, something that seemed impossible for such a ruthless predator. When he opened the door and saw the mother leopard with the dying cub in her mouth, the reality that something stronger than instinctual survival was at stake washed over him. Without thinking, Liam brought the two creatures inside. He didn't think about the danger or the wild nature that still resided within each of them. He just saw an opportunity to save two lives that were about to be snuffed out by the relentless winter. But for the leopard, trust wasn't instantaneous. She looked at him, a strange man in her territory, with suspicion but also with a silent need for him to be her only hope. The cub in critical condition and the mother, who seemed to be on the verge of death, would be more than a challenge for him. But Liam knew one thing: he needed to act quickly. Time was running out. Liam worked with almost instinctive precision, driven by a growing fear that if he didn't act quickly, everything would be lost. He picked up the still shocked cub and warmed him against his chest, his body shaking with the cold that invaded him. The sounds of the storm outside were drowned out by the intensity of the moment, while the mother snow leopard, now inside the cabin, remained motionless. His eyes, still clouded with exhaustion, followed Liam's every move with a vigilance that only an apex predator could have. The cub, small and fragile, was cold as a stone. His almost non-existent breathing made Liam's heart race. If I don't do something now, he won't survive, he thought, as he looked for warm milk. His thoughts were quick and focused, but the panic of not being able to save that life dominated him. He knew he had no time to waste. As he placed the cub directly against his body, Liam felt the heat from his own chest transmitted to the small creature. It was as if the warmth of his life was that fragile being's only chance of survival. The hours passed slowly, with Liam working tirelessly to warm the mother leopard, rubbing her paws, massaging her frozen body, breaking up the ice that had solidified her fur. He knew his mother was also in critical condition. Her breathing was still ragged and shallow, and he feared she wouldn't survive long enough to see the cub grow. It was then that the leopard made a movement that took Liam by surprise. His eyes opened, his muscles tensed. He froze, waiting for his mother's predator instinct to kick in, but instead she just watched. There was no threat in his gaze, just a wariness of the kind that only a wild animal knew how to possess. But as Liam got closer, with the cub still warm against his jacket, the leopard calmed down. What happened next caused time to freeze. She lowered her head and with a soft purr made a sound of trust. Liam stood there, motionless, not knowing how to react. The beast, so big and powerful, was surrendering to him somehow. It was as if she knew that at that moment he was her only hope. He kept his eyes locked on hers, his body shaking, not just from the cold, but from the connection that was beginning to form between them. An unlikely connection, born of pure survival. As the hours passed, Liam was no longer sure what was happening there. Nature seemed to have opened a breach for an impossible connection, and he, a simple man, was witnessing a miracle in real time. But he knew one thing clearly: the fight was not over. The night stretched on, without Liam noticing time passing. He moved between the leopard and the cub, restlessly, his mind occupied with just one thing: ensuring they both survived. The warmth he offered the little leopard was the only thing that kept him from losing his battle against the cold. The cub was still motionless, But the feeling that it was warmer, more alive, made Liam breathe more calmly. As he worked, he felt his mother's eyes on him. She was even closer now, but there was no more distrust, just silent respect. She watched, but didn't make any sudden movements. He was accepting of what he was doing, as if he recognized that he was part of the only plan that could save his cub's life. Liam felt the pressure on him increasing. How could someone so small, so fragile, survive the relentless mountain winter? How could a simple wooden hut be enough to save them? The mother leopard, despite her condition, seemed calmer, more confident. When Liam stepped away briefly to feed the fire, he saw that she was lying closer, her paws outstretched and her head resting on the floor, almost in a resting position. It was as if she knew the battle was far from won, but there was something about her that seemed to accept Liam's help, to trust him with a depth he never imagined possible between a human and a predator. The hours passed in absolute silence, interrupted only by the strong wind outside and the subtle sound of their breathing. Liam knew the cub was still fighting to survive, but his chest was starting to move more naturally. The little one was reacting to Liam's body heat, but pneumonia was still threatening his life. He needed more than just human heat to survive. He needed medical attention, and he knew he had no more time to waste. It was then that he made the decision. With a trembling voice and a heavy heart, he picked up the radio and made the call to the rescue team. "This is Liam, in the surveillance booth on Mountain 12. I have a snow leopard cub, and the mother is in serious condition. I need medical help now. She has hypothermia, pneumonia. The situation is critical." As he waited for the answer, Liam found himself looking at the leopard. She didn't move, but her expression was a mix of tiredness and gratitude. Liam had known that if he hadn't called for help, if he hadn't acted the way he did, they both could have died that night. The trust he had gained from the leopard was not given freely, but rather through a natural instinct for survival. "I won't let you go alone," Liam muttered, more to himself than to the leopard. The storm outside seemed to be increasing, but inside the cabin, a palpable tension spread through the air. Liam knew that although the puppy had shown signs of recovery, the worst was yet to come. Liam's radio crackled, communication cutting through the stillness of the night. The radio's voice was muffled by the storm, but he could make out his team's words. "We're on our way, Liam, preparing the animals for transport." The relief was immediate, but ephemeral. Liam knew that even with help arriving, time was against them. The mother leopard seemed calmer, but her gaze still reflected silent disgust. The tension of the situation had not dissipated. The mother continued to watch the puppy with her eyes fixed, as if she wanted to keep him deep in her soul, as if the world could collapse and she would still stay with him. Liam turned his attention to the cub. He was still weak, but now the movements were more noticeable. He was able to swallow more milk than before, but the loud sound of his breathing still terrified him. The cub was still far from safe. When the rescue team finally arrived, the lights of the vehicles ripped through the darkness, and the first signs of humanity invaded the cabin scene. Doctors and veterinarians, equipped with first aid materials and oxygen, entered the hut, making quick and precise movements. The cub was carefully placed in a makeshift incubator, while technicians applied oxygen and began the stabilization process. But the mother leopard was not willing to be touched. She growled as a veterinarian tried to approach, her sharp claws and teeth bared, as if she were going to fight to the death to protect her cub. The tension in the air was palpable. No one dared to approach her. Everyone waited for Liam's command, knowing that he was the only one with whom the leopard seemed to have any bond of trust. Liam slowly approached the mother leopard, his hands open, trying to show that he posed no threat. The tension between them was enormous. The leopard's fangs gleamed in the flashlight light, but instead of attacking, she calmed down when he reached out his hand towards her. He bent down, placing his palms against the floor in an attempt to establish a deeper, more human connection. He spoke quietly without rushing. "It's okay. I'm here. You and the pup are going to be fine." She didn't respond, but her posture relaxed, and she lay back down on the cabin floor, allowing him to get closer. The puppy was in good hands now. The mother knew that. Her confidence grew, and the bond that formed between them, human and wild, seemed to transcend any natural barrier. Liam did what no one else would dare do. With a steady, calm movement, he helped guide the mother leopard into the carrier. There was no resistance. She got up, and with one last look at the puppy, followed Liam without hesitation, entering the box with the confidence of someone who knew that her life would be saved there, in that transport box. The cabin fell silent, like a scene from an epic story, and when Liam and the leopard entered the vehicle, he knew something transformative had occurred in that space between man and beast. He felt, in his bones, that nature had something more to teach, something that could never be explained, but that would be remembered forever. Time passed, and the mother leopard, finally stabilized, was treated with the best care at the wildlife hospital. The pup, in his slow recovery, now played with the nurses caring for him, his breathing stronger each day. Liam, although immersed in the routine of his life as a ranger, knew he would never forget that night. When the time for release finally arrived, Liam was there, as always, to make sure mother and calf were ready to return home to the mountains where they belonged, the place where wildlife meets instinct, survival, and freedom. The day of release was the hardest of all. Liam knew that as strong as the bond was, the leopard and her cub needed to return to the wild, where their life of hunting and fighting continued. When the mother leopard walked away, her gaze at Liam was intense. She didn't attack. She didn't move away in fear. She just looked at him and with a soft purr expressed her gratitude, something he knew could never be completely understood. As she and the cub disappeared into the trees, Liam felt something deep and unspeakable. It was the understanding that a true bond is not built solely on fear or the need for survival, but on trust that transcends all barriers, a trust that for a moment he and the snow leopard had shared. And so, the mountains continued to be the home of many beings, but the man and the leopard knew that somehow the bond between them would never be forgotten.